Welcome to the Indie Author Showcase. I'm Chad Robert Morgan.
And I'm... What's a name? Give me a name.
Alexander Morgan.
I hate that name.
Well, that's the one you have.
I'm gonna change it to Bloggenschneid.
Bloggenschneid?
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of hard to find that on a coffee mug at Disneyland.
No.
Barry... Bart... No, Blorgenstein.
I'm Bloggenstein, bro. You know the Berenstein Bears? You ready for the...
Or is it Berenstain Bears? Have you not heard of the Mandela effect?
Who cares, dog? They're bears. You go to the bear, you go to the... I walk up to this bear. Hey, are you a Berenstein bear? Or Berenstein bear? That bear's gonna look at me, it's going to eat me. I'm going to die. The bear doesn't care.
Well, at that point, it's Cocaine Bear, and then you just gotta run.
I feel like bears eating me isn't cocaine bear. I feel like that's most bears, if not all bears.
I don't know a lot about bears. I think the bears here in California are generally brown and black bears. And generally, if you leave them alone, they leave you alone. Now, that's not true of like polar bears and grizzlies, but most of them are brown and black bears, which, I mean, again, the predators, if you mess with them, they'll ruin your day.
I think they're going to ruin your life by killing you because they are bears.
I don't think we have a lot of bear attacks here in California. Usually they're more of they'll defend themselves than attack. Now, other bears like Kodiaks and polar bears are more aggressive, but brown and black bears, I think, they tend to leave you alone as long as you leave them alone, kind of thing. So, usually, I believe. Although they will tell you that when you go camping, they'll have like special lockers to put your food in. Because you leave it in the car, bear will come around, and then you're going to have a convertible. They have been known to tear cars apart because they'll smell the food.
Let's go, bears. Save me a lot of money, though.
Da bears.
Thank you, bears.
So, we didn't have a podcast last week because I was at Neill's Vampire Weekend.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Not great.
Wow. Crazy that.
Oh my God. Well, I wasn't expecting a whole lot because this was the first time they were doing this. But I was expecting a little bit more than what I had. Mm-hmm. So we found Vampire Weekend because a friend of the show, Scott Harper, he was going to, it's like, oh, I know this event, you should sign up for this and everything like that. And he shows up on that first day, starts setting up, he comes over and says, I'm sorry. First words out of his mouth, I'm sorry, right? And I'm like, it's early yet, we're still setting it up, it's the first day of a first con, let's not be pessimistic. By about mid-Saturday, I'm like, okay, I will accept that apology now. So it was very, very slow. It was very, very dead. So the event was held at the Burbank Convention Center, and we know the Burbank Convention Center because Son of Monsterpalooza is there, and this October will be our third time going to Son of Monsterpalooza. When we go to Son of Monsterpalooza, they have the entire thing filled, and they have vendors out lining the halls. That's usually where they stick us at Son of Monsterpalooza. We're out in the hall, right? Because they don't have booths there; they just have tables. And for Son of Monsterpalooza, we just do a table because it's a smaller venue. For Neill's Vampire Weekend, they only had half of the convention center being used for vendors. The other half was set up for panels, which I believe for Son of Monsterpalooza, they usually do that next door in the hotel. They also have all kinds of other rooms off to the side. Like I remember, I think last time our friend from Necronomitunes, who's a fellow vendor, he was in like a little room outside of the main hall, and there's a big sign saying more vendors this way kind of thing. And that's usually where they do things like autograph signing and meet and greets and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of empty space in the convention. And again, it was their first year. I wasn't expecting a lot. But one of the fun things that happened was I was on the outer edge of the vendors, and lining all around the convention were the celebrities. And they had some good celebrities. Linda Blair showed up for a day. We had several of the crew of the Black Pearl from Pirates of the Caribbean. In fact, I talked to one of them. What was his name? Isaac Stapleton, I think it was. Nice guy. Really nice guy. So usually when we do these conventions, the celebrities attract the customers. The customers come to see the celebrities, they get their autograph, and then they come visit the vendors. So the bigger the celebrities, the more crowds you get, the better the vendors do. That's generally how it works. Monsterpalooza gets some really quality celebrities with, they've had the Raimi brothers, they've had Bruce Campbell, Creep IE get some really big names. They've had the cast of Terrifier, they had Billy D. Williams one year. So with Vanille's Vampire Weekend, they had some pretty big names in celebrities. I believe they did have I'm trying to think of some of the other ones before I get to the ones that I was talking to. But I think they had like a couple of the people. Well, they had the one guy from Terrifier 3. He played the Santa Claus that Art killed. Not the biggest role in the thing, but kind of an important one. But I had a ball because I was parked right across from Michael Ironside.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who that is?
No.
I am so failing you as a father. Michael Ironside, he was really big in the 80s, and I'm trying to think of some roles that you might know him as. But do you remember the the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited shows, right? Back when Kevin Conroy was doing the voice of Batman before he died.
Yeah.
Michael Ironside was the voice of Darkseid.
Wow.
He also had a small role in the original Top Gun.
Mm-hmm.
I first saw him in the TV series V, which was really popular in the 80s. They tried to reboot it about 10 years ago. It didn't take. I forget his character's name, but I remember when he showed up. And he has a habit of playing badasses. I think one of his biggest roles is he was in Scanners, which is a horror classic. He was not the main villain, but the main villain's main henchman in the original Total Recall. He was the one that was chasing after Schwarzenegger the entire movie. And he was the captain of the Sequest in its final season.
Wow.
So, again, most of this is before your time, but for somebody growing up in the 80s, this guy's pretty big, right? Turns out Michael Ironside is the nicest fucking dude you've ever met in your life, right? So I am like kitty corner, like across from him and one over with Michael Ironside, right? And there's no customers. And we're looking at each other and we're doing this. He does it to me, I do it back to him, and it's like, I don't know what to do. So he has a panel, right? He goes to the one room that does the that's all set up for panels. They had like this whole like a face-off reunion kind of thing. Michael Ironside had a whole panel there where he talks about his career. And so he comes back the next day. He's coming back to his booth. He walks over and says, "Hey, we've been staring at each other for all day." It's like, "I'm Michael. Pleasure to meet you." says hi to my wife. I asked him, so how'd your panel go? And he goes, oh, I just sat around, talked about my career. Problem is my memory's not so good these days. So I can't lie. When you lie, you have to remember the lies you told, and I can't remember, so I have to tell the truth. And that gets me in trouble sometimes. William Shatner is an asshole. And I was like, what movie did you... And, he even told me what it was. I forget what it was, but he did a movie with William Shatner a while back. And apparently did not get along. One of the other celebrities I talked to, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right, is Ken Foree, right? Foree. And he was in the original George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Now, you probably know the remake, right? Because that's the one that usually shows up on cable and everything like that. The one that was James Gunn's Zack Snyder. The remake was awesome, but he was in the original, right? And we're doing the same thing. Like, I'm looking at him across the room, and he's like, where is everybody? Where is everybody? And I go over and I talk to him. Oh, here's what happened, because he's going like this, where is everybody? And I was like, I don't know. I'm wondering the same thing. And he goes, for Tommy. I'm like, what? And so I walked over to him, and I was like, what are we talking about? And apparently, a lot of the celebrities, if not all of them, basically the guy who was running the convention actually runs a very successful one out of Detroit. So he's done successful horror conventions before. I think it's Motor City Nights or something like that. So, and apparently he called up all his celebrity friends saying, I got a new one in Burbank, please show up. And everybody was doing this as a favor to him. And they were all sitting around going, where is everybody? So it was a very long weekend for everybody. Very disheartening, because as some of these vendors, they live off of this stuff. I mean, I got a day job, right? I don't need to do this to pay my rent. But it does cost me money, right? The booth fees were not very expensive, but I didn't even make half of that back, let alone what I was selling. So it's very, very disheartening when you go to one of these things and you're struggling. Because I mean, it's one thing when you're hustling the customers and trying to make a sale, trying to convince them to give your book a shot. It's another thing when there's no customers to pitch to. And the only thing longer than an 8 or 10 hour day standing in a booth trying to convince people to buy your book is an 8 or 10 hour day standing around with nothing to do. So it was unfortunately well, I don't like, it wasn't a complete loss, because like I said, I had a fun time talking to Michael Ironside, chatted with Kevin Foray, and I actually sold a book to Tiffany Sherripp, who is, among other things, and I had to look this up because I did not know, was the doctor on the USS Titan on Picard season 3. And I was like, oh shit. So, as a Trekkie, I once I found that part out, I was like, whoa. But she was in Tales of Halloween, Sharknado 2, Victor Crowley. So she's been in a lot of horror movies. And I was like really excited when I IMDb'd her, and I found that she also was on Picard. So that was really exciting for me, right? And she bought short bites for her son. So I'm like, woohoo! Because like I said, we don't get to meet the celebrities usually. Usually they're busy signing autographs and we're busy selling books and stuff to the crowd, we usually don't have an opportunity to chat. And so that was really nice. And they, like I said, all the celebrities I talked to were very, very nice. And so that part at least was nice. So that part you missed out. That part would have been kind of fun, but that's okay. But you wouldn't have known any of those guys, I don't think. Cause
I probably would have fallen asleep, low-key.
I think I had to keep your mother awake a few times because I think at one point she went to the car and took a nap because she was so bored.
No, I got her on this one.
Yeah, no. This one was this one made HorrorCon look like the biggest con ever. I mean, it was really really good. Speaking of, you want to go to HorrorCon again? Because they're asking me to sign up.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, so am I. HorrorCon has also not gone very well. So, but what is our next convention?
I don't know.
You don't know? Because it's next weekend.
Oh. What is it?
WonderCon in Anaheim.
Oh.
Now, WonderCon I'm really excited about because last time we went to WonderCon, we did very well, and everybody was saying it was a very slow WonderCon because it was the same weekend as Easter, and it was raining. So the rain kind of, between the two, it was chasing people away. So this year we're not going to be at Easter, and hopefully it won't rain. So I'm hoping that in spite of the state of the economy, that it's going to be even bigger than it was last year, because last year we did pretty good at WonderCon. So fingers crossed, I'm feeling very bullish about WonderCon. So that means there's no podcast next week because we'll be back at WonderCon. Okay? But then we have all of April. So 4 wonderful episodes. And then we're going to hit May. And I think we're going to pretty much take most of May off.
Right.
Right? Because we're going to have halfway to Halloween at the beginning. We're going to have Pasadena Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. Now, technically, that's a one-day event. So we might do a show that week. Then when we have a week off, then we will have Monster Palooza. So we will be doing at most 2 episodes in May.
Oh.
At most.
So book time?
I don't know. You gonna put the phone down?
Yes. Okay. Book time. Today we'll be reading The Knife's Edge by Matthew Wolfe. I'm going to now read the back.
So, speaking of WonderCon, we met him at WonderCon about 2 years ago, right? So last year was the first time we went as a vendor, but the year before that, your mother and I went to kind of scope it out because we wanted to see if it was it looked like it would be a good con for an independent bookseller. Turned out like that year there were several independent booksellers there, and we're like, yeah, okay, this would be a good strong con. The year we went, we had rows of independent booksellers. It was a very good con for in self-published, indie published, small press. So any people that are in like the same people that run WonderCon or the same people that run San Diego Comic-Con, my recommendation would be to not do San Diego Comic-Con, but instead do WonderCon. And again, it's not a slight on the people running the show. It's the same people, right? It's just San Diego Comic-Con is so expensive, right? Because it's San Diego Comic-Con. It's like the crown jewel of these kind of conventions, right? So they charge a premium. So I would recommend going to the one here in Anaheim like we're going to do next weekend. If you are like us, small press or indie publisher, you'll get a lot, and then get the small press table instead of a full booth. Keeps your fees down. that worked well for us last year. And when we come back in April, we'll tell you how well it worked this year. So hopefully lightning will strike twice. So, but getting back on topic, we met him 2 years ago, finally got around to reading his book. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about the book?
They have to read. This is the part where I read the back. This is
the part where you read the back, yes.
I can speak for the first time now. Elemental magic, immortal legends. The Ronin have returned. 18-year-old Grey has a terrible power that all the world fears. A reborn legend of told he wields the forsaken power of the wind. As the world of the valley crumbles, Grey is their only hope. Labeled as the harbinger of chaos, Grey must lead the last citizens of the valley to a new world, fleeing the death known as Kage, or Shadow. With a host of unlikely companions, Grey must now save those who fear him before the Kage destroy the last vestiges of a dying world.
Dun, dun, dun. So what did you think about it?
I thought it was pretty good. No, it's well written. The lore is pretty nice. I don't know, I just thought it was good.
So this is a fantasy novel. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I'm not a big fantasy guy. There were a couple times when I thought the story was so convoluted that it got a little, like, you kind of had to parse it a little bit. I mean, this is not a thin book by any stretch of the imagination, right? This is, I mean, how many pages is that you got in front? Because it's a thick one.
Okay.
The book numbers are on the side for some reason. I'm seeing somewhere in the neighborhood of 400. See?
437, 441, yeah.
About 450.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a generous sized book, right? So like one of the things that like was kind of threw me at first, and I had to kind of figure out was everybody's fearing the Ronin, and then the Ronin show up, and it turns out the Ronin aren't really the bad guys.
Yeah.
And maybe I missed this part because I was listening to it on Audible. But at one point there were these like evil versions of the Ronin, and that's what screwed up their reputation. Like they split, like they're the fucking Dark Crystal or something like that. You know, there's remind me of that scene from Evil Dead, or from Army of Darkness, where Ash split. If you ever seen that movie, you ever see Army of Darkness?
Yeah.
Remember the part where he splits and he's like, "Who are you?" It's like, "I'm Evil Ash. You're good Ash. Evil Ash. Goody two shoes." You know, right about the part where he's all dancing around and then Ash sticks a shotgun in his mouth and says, "Good, bad. I'm the one with the gun." Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like the Karge and the Ronin did the same trick, right? Like at some point they split, and then where there was like this mirror version of the Ronin that was the true threat. I don't remember if they ever explained how that happened. Do you remember that? No, but you know what I'm talking about, yeah. Right? And then there was Kale the Betrayer, and he's helping the main character, and he's kind of on this redemption arc. Like I read, like you remember the party end where he shows up. Like I wasn't, again, maybe I missed it because there's a lot going on in this book. It's a dense book, where like Maris was saying, like, I think I know what's going to happen. I think I know what really happened, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to jinx it because you know, it's for book reasons. Like I said, maybe I missed it, but it just seemed like I never quite figured out why Kale was kind of blacklisted. Now this is book 1 of the series. Maybe he's teasing something up for book 2. I don't know that there were a couple of spots like that, and there was also a couple of times when the prose was a little repetitive, right? You know, she turned to Darius, and you, Darius. Well, you just said Darius. You know, when you're listening to that on Audible, it gets repetitive. Like if you're reading it on the page, it's probably not a big deal, but when I'm listening to it, you know, those kinds of phrases just kind of, you know, although I will say the audiobook was very well narrated. I really enjoyed, I should have looked it up. I really enjoyed whoever it was that narrated. He did an excellent job. So, yes. But you've read the book. You didn't. You did.
As someone who read the book, I thought it was fine. It didn't really.
Well, what I mean is, you read it. You didn't listen to it on Audible. You actually read the hard copy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for you probably didn't notice those kind of weird repetitions in the prose, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't notice it at all.
I think it shows up more in the audiobook because you can hear it, and it just feels like a you know, almost like the dripping of a faucet when that happens. This is one of the issues I've actually had with talking to other authors about, like, for example, the use of said, right? One of the hallmarks of...
Have you gotten this exact same tangent before?
Probably.
Yeah, you have.
Probably. Well, let me just summarize. As somebody who's listening to it on Audible, I'm trying to, if you quit making funny faces. Like there was one I was listening to, Red Shirts from John Scalzi, I believe it was. There's this whole conversation where it's like, yada yada, he said, yada yada, she said, yada yada, he said, yada yada, she said. And there's no action breaking it up. There's no, and it just, after about the seventh or eighth time of hearing said, it's just hitting you over the head. Now, if you're reading that, if you got the hard copy on it, said is invisible, right? Your eyes just go, whoop, and you keep on going, and it's no big deal. So like some of these writing tips that they tell people, I think some of those rules have to be adjusted when you're thinking about the audiobook. I try to do that in my own work where I try not to, have a repetition of words. I try not to have a repetition of, like if I use said more than like 3 times in a row, I try to find something to break it up with. Just because, like I said, you listen to it, it hits you differently than when you're actually reading it. So, but that's just me. Mm. Anyhow, but yes, strong fantasy book. The other thing that I noticed is, remember, like they're talking about weaving threads, and then there's the whole thing is they're journeying to Death's Gate because they got to unlock this big gate because the magic is trapped on the other side, and that's the fantasy land that's on the other side and everything like that. Did you get some like Todd Fahnestock vibes off of that? Like, remember, we read the first book in that fantasy series, and they had this whole thing about thread weaving, and they explained magic as nothing but weaving threads of matter, right? Like it was almost string theory in a way. And they had this fountain that was capping the magic, and they had to break it to let magic back into the land. Remember? Yeah. So I was just like reading, listening to this and hearing them talk about that, and I kept, it kept reminding me of Todd's book when hitting that, and we bought this book a year before we even met Todd, right? So I mean, it's just maybe it's just fantasy tropes. Maybe I'm just not reading enough fantasy, that kind of thing. But it. That part stuck out to me. It's just, like I said, maybe it's just a standard fantasy trope at this point, and I'm just behind in my fantasy reading. But that's what a couple of those things reminded me of Todd's work. So, but overall, very excellent book. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it way better than I thought I would. Oh, and the other thing that I liked about it. So usually the guy with amnesia is a really tired trope, right? Some guy wakes up, he doesn't remember anything, and he's got to rediscover himself and everything like that. It's kind of been done to death. It's kind of hard to make that new or fresh. But he had an interesting approach in this one, whereas we start with the character before he loses his memory, right? So usually when we have that amnesia trope, it's a gimmick to get the reader to give him a mystery to solve, right? Because as the person is solving the mystery of who he is, because he doesn't remember anything, the reader is also solving that mystery, right? In this book, Gray is kind of trying to solve that mystery, but to the reader, it's not a mystery. We were there at the beginning. We knew him as Kieran in the first few chapters. And when Vera shows up and starts calling him Kieran, it's not a mystery to us. It's a mystery to Gray. Gray doesn't know what the hell's going on, but we as readers know what's going on. And I thought that was really interesting, turning that trope on its side. I thought that, it's kind of, the whole amnesia thing is a kind of a weak, gimmicky, overdone thing, whereas here it wasn't really gimmicky because it didn't do what the normal gimmicky thing was to do. And so this was a very unique take on it, right? This whole Gray learning who he is, not in the sense of who he used to be, but who he is now. Like he's abandoned all that. And there's like a point in the book where he's like, I don't even care who I used to be anymore because this is who I am now, right? He doesn't even care about his past anymore. So I thought that was a unique take on what otherwise would be a tired reused trope. So that was clever of the writer for that. Any other thoughts?
No, not particularly.
What was your favorite part of the book?
I'm trying to remember.
Trying to remember if you even read it?
I read it, yes. I don't know. Probably the end. I thought the end was nice. Although it kind of set up for the next book. I thought the stuff before that was pretty good.
You mean like the final battle part?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
Final battle part, I got a little lost in. I might have to go back and re-listen to that because it got a little bit bit for me. I might have to go back and re-listen to it. I think also because I was fighting with Google at the time I was listening to it, and I didn't quite have my full attention at the time, to be frank. But that might be more my fault than the writers. So, all right. So, we already talked about our schedule. So, where are we going to be at?
Yeah, WonderCon.
WonderCon next week. May, we will be at Halfway to Halloween at Cherupa Park. There's going to be an outdoor event. That should be fun.
Right.
Followed by Pasadena Comic-Con. That will be one day only. That'll be on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then Monsterpalooza.
Okay.
Then after May, we have nothing until September. September, we will have Creep IE Aftermath. The weekend after that, we do not have a convention, but we will probably not be doing a show because your mother and I are going to go out to Arizona to check out another convention. Personally, I wanted to sign up, but your mother was like, you know what, after Vampire Weekend, maybe we should scope it out first before committing. And I'm like, okay, fine, it's probably the smart thing to do. But Ghouls Day Out is sponsored by Terror Trader. And from what I have heard from the other vendors, Terror Trader events in Arizona are huge conventions. More, not so much of size, but of the amount of business it does, because unlike here in Southern California, where we're kind of getting oversaturated with horror conventions, I believe when you go out to Arizona, there's only a couple of these, and so they come out. They come out for the convention, so we're really excited for that. And then in October, we will have Son of Monsterpalooza. And that should be our schedule for the year. So I don't think we're going to have anything new popping up anytime soon.
With that being said, if you want to find us, go to shopspectruminc.com. Go there. Yeah.
No dildos. No.
I didn't bring it up. That was on you this time.
I know. I was expecting you to.
That's your fault.
I was expecting you to.
And Toodaloo.
We gotta find a better sign off.
Nah, I'm good. I like Toodaloo a lot. I'm keeping.